No, that's the thing. Like, I think that that's one of the grossest things about the condescension, and to be honest, liberals and the liberal mindset is like, yes, we can acknowledge that there's a national tragedy. We don't actually want to address the issues that are perpetuating poverty in this area. Like, in this one region, it would seem that, like, you know, poor white people in this area can't seem to stop still staying poor, and it just perpetuates itself over and over and over. And is there an explanation for any of this? And you're like, yeah, it has a lot to do with the economic systems itself. I mean, did we really want to get into this? It's like, no. No, I don't. I've done my part. I said the thing. I said the thing out loud. We all had a time, and now I can get back to my day, because I don't have to be bothered about this. This video is doing the rounds right now. It's becoming quite controversial. It's got a couple of people very upset. I saw that known critical race theorist Stephen Bonnell II, aka Destiny, apparently was quite taken aback by it, so I thought there has to be something to this video. You see, Jon Stewart, white racism. There we go. Here we go. This is gonna pull people in. This is gonna clickbait. I'm gonna clickbait a bunch of peoples. But I'm gonna start by saying this. Hey, I love all people. All people. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. I love all people. Yes, that's going to be my official stance, all right? I am not going to be one to sit back and endure if there's going to be a whole bunch of outrageous racism, all right? So, let's see. Connor Lamb is doing Red Scare propaganda for the Republicans. Connor Lamb. Okay, I'll look at this later.
As you may know, this country has had some issues with race. Oh, okay. Sphincters are tightening already. We've had some issues with race. There was that incident in 1619, and then had a few hiccups since then, but mostly it's been fine. We've all been chilling. It's been chill. Until a couple years ago, another rare bad thing happened to black people in the summer of 2020.
George Floyd's death is sparking a national reckoning.
The death of George Floyd, it sparks this global movement, this racial reckoning.
We here in America certainly had our own racial reckoning in the wake of George Floyd's death.
A growing number of American companies facing a racial reckoning.
As America confronts a racial reckoning.
A racial reckoning.
It also comes at a time of racial reckoning for the country.
Oh. So you guys are finally ready to talk about racial reckoning. We don't want to right the wrongs. We just reckon we're going to think about it for a bit.
Seems about fair.
Well, not to worry. This egregious midday murder will not be in vain. Let the work of righting centuries of oppression begin.
Aunt Jemima is being retired.
Can I read it afterwards, Lost? We're in the middle of the segment right now.
By any means necessary.
Cream of wheat is removing the black chef from its packaging.
Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, has announced he is stepping away.
Every NFL stadium, you're going to see phrases like end racism.
Tonight we know the Dixie Chicks are dropping the Dixie.
The village of Hempstead renamed Main Street Black Lives Matter Way.
We will now kneel.
Oh, here
for
it is.
Our moment.
Yes. Yes. Look at that. Look at this. Oh, this is the moment racism ended in America. It's beautiful. It wasn't Obama's election. It was this. You can just feel it the second it clicks, and then racism is gone. It's like they unlocked a feature in a video game. It's so cool.
Worst production of Lion King ever. But more than Kente cloth calisthenics and some long overdue brand readjustments, there came another, even more meaningful cultural shift.
I think white people need to listen.
White people should listen to African Americans.
White people, we need to listen.
We are listening. I am listening. Now it's time for us to have ears to hear.
Ears to hear. What were you using them before for, Mike Pence? I wonder. What were you using ears for? Actually, you know what? I don't want to know. I have no interest. I don't want you to be discovering any new holes, Mike.
Oh, good, because I've been using mine for fucking.
Whoa. Hey, like-minded. Well, I mean, he didn't go quite as gross as I did there, but we were synced. I always thought this day would happen, John. It's cool. It's cool to be here.
Two at a time. I like my ear fucking like I like my Pink Floyd albums in stereo.
Yes, the old relatable ear sex joke. Yeah, it's not an original idea. I think it's a pretty logical conclusion. If you hear someone say a sentence like Mike Pence just said a sentence, like we have to find some ears for hearing, like kind of like what else would you be using them? Oh, yeah. I got there.
Yeah, we changed it from rehearsal for the crew that got a bit of a tickle out of that one. Yes, apparently this racial issue that so divides America could have just been solved if only black people would have said something. So, okay, white people, ears to hear.
This is the harsh reality for black people in America today, that we are expected to participate in democracy while receiving conditional citizenship in return.
When zip code determines what kind of school that you go to, when zip code determines what kind of food you can eat, these are the vestiges of enslavement.
So when they say, why do you burn down the community?
Such fire.
Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything.
It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back.
I mean, this stuff is hard to hear. But these are tough conversations, and I would probably have more hope in its impact on our culture if those same exact sentiments hadn't already been conveyed to white people over and over and over.
Good point.
Like 1 year earlier on The Breakfast Club.
They never addressed the primary problems of black folk. Our primary problem was not social integration or civil rights. The primary problem is you never corrected the legacies and burdens of slavery.
Or by Viola Davis at an award show in 2015.
The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity.
Or in the 90s, when Sister Souljah explained this directly to Bill Clinton and Larry King.
The thing that kills African people in America is not what white people say, but what they do, their policies, their actions.
See, white people are pretending that this problem is new, and we're just hearing about it now because we love to discover stuff that's already existed. It's kind of our thing. America! Where did you come from? First. As a matter of fact, this shit has been said many times.
I love when there's like a live audience and you can distinctly make out one person's laugh. Like there's this one woman's laugh who you can hear every single time. I can almost position her in where she's sitting in the audience.
Just by Chris Rock.
Shit, there ain't a white man in this room that would change places with me, and I'm rich. You had a 400-year head start, motherfucker. See, the black man gotta fly to get something that the white man could walk to. A black C student can't even be the manager of Burger King. Meanwhile, a white C student just happens to be the president of the United States of America.
He's a very good comedian. But you know what? Maybe you don't want to hear about our racial divide and have it be funny. Would you rather black people invent an entire genre of music just to explain it to us?
Fathers of this country never cared for me. They kept my ancestors shackled up in slavery. And Uncle Sam never did a damn thing for me. Except lie about the facts in my history.
But you know what? It's wonderful that white people are finally ready to sit back and listen. But damn, the black people speaking out now are just sampling the classics.
Racism is so deeply embedded into the fabric of the society.
Thank you, Angela. James Baldwin went all the way to England to explain it because he wanted to do it at white people headquarters.
It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you.
For fuck's sake, Frederick Douglass told white people, the rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. He said that in 1852. And now, 170 years later, suddenly we're like, hey, you seem upset. We're still cool though, right? Did we do something? Black people have given us step-by-step instructions through the centuries. They didn't even do that with the electric slide, which, by the way, 3 steps and then you bend. I don't want to get into it. And yet, even after all that, the wealth gap, worse now. Home ownership, worse now. Segregation, worse now. On average, a white high school graduate is wealthier than a black college graduate. Forget about them telling you even the stark facts don't seem to matter.
Black Americans should understand that if they study and work hard, they will likely succeed in this country.
Just not as much as white people who don't study as hard. We have been told over and over and over again by black people that this country has never resolved the original sins of slavery and segregation. But the response to that is always,
if Barack Obama can make it as the son of a single white mom, then so can everybody else.
Oprah Winfrey is perhaps the best example of a talented person who made it on her own in America.
LeBron James is a great American success story.
How can America be racist if Cleveland has a championship? It doesn't seem to matter what black people tell us.
You know what's been pretty great about this video so far is the primary target has been fucking libs. It's neat to see. Like, it's neat to see Jon Stewart going after the performative politics of liberalism. Because it absolutely is true. It sucks. Like, just look at Justin Trudeau's entire career. It's always just like, oh yeah, he gets in front of the camera and he's like, you know, I love women. I love people of color. I'm going to have a diverse cabinet. You know, we're going to have representation. Everything will be great. And we're also going to keep on suing the survivors of residential schools. They're really fucked up shit like that. But hey, I kneel. And when I kneel, I cry. 1 tear. Single tear. He's got that down.
How many times they say it, it lands on deaf ears because a large swath of white America believes that black Americans are solely responsible for their community struggle. And the bias is so pervasive, we don't even notice it.
Crack. Who's responsible? Let me tell you straight out. Everyone who uses drugs.
And perchance, who would this everyone be?
Crack has become the new franchise, a chemical McDonald's. You want to get high, you see the guys in the gangs, in the red and blue outfits.
The front line in the war on crack.
There are tens of thousands more crack babies on the way.
Crack babies are going to overwhelm every social service delivery system.
Before, we could afford to ignore the hopelessness represented by gangs, but now we're afraid
they haven't
it will
said
affect
black
our
people.
schools,
Come
our
on.
kids, our
Give them
streets.
credit. They haven't said black people out loud.
but it's turning
There's a
our
lot of
cities into
euphemisms.
battle zones, and it's murdering our children.
What kind of fucking candy do you eat?
Winners don't use drugs, kids. Remember that. Winners don't use
Now, this
drugs.
is not to downplay at all the effects of the crack epidemic, but we are currently in the midst of an equally corrosive opioid epidemic, although that affects a slightly different everyone. And how is that portrayed?
America's addiction to opioids is playing out right down the street. Every type of person you can imagine.
It's a national
Successful
crisis.
people.
And it is.
Funny people. Moms, dads, grandparents, injured athletes, cancer patients, war veterans.
Someone you
Chances are greater than ever you know someone directly affected. Why are opioids so hard to quit?
Well, that's fucking easy. It links opioid receptors and inhibits an enzyme that I'm not going to get into it right now. But the point is, it's on purpose. And the people who made it that way only had to pay a fine. But that's drugs. I'm sure poverty doesn't have the same empathy gap.
Inner city is a polite name for ghetto, as in black ghetto.
And that's the award-winning PBS journalist. So, just out of curiosity, why is the black ghetto poor?
Intelligent Americans know it is the collapse of the traditional family that is wreaking havoc in the African American community.
72% of black babies are born to single mothers.
If they would start talking about the responsibilities of fatherhood.
Dependency on welfare was breaking up black families.
You know what's wild is how old some of these clips are, and this narrative hasn't changed at all. Like, this is the same thing that actual Justice Warrior still says today. It's, oh, it's the culture. Yeah, it's the black culture, I tell you. The hip-hop and everything, and it's what leads to a whole bunch of single mothers.
The breakdown of the black family and an extraordinarily dysfunctional, toxic inner-city culture.
Inner city? Excuse me, the politically correct phrase is black ghetto. Good day. By the way, how do we portray poverty in the outer city?
Ruggedly beautiful and deeply poor Appalachia for decades has struggled.
People here have struggled more and more as their factories have shuttered and their coal.
You know what is so striking about this, though, and like, good job for doing this kind of juxtaposition, because it's like, it's neat from a media analysis perspective. You don't think about this. This is so subconscious. Like, whenever you see these kind of these videos and stuff, you're not thinking right now, wow, there's all these scary people who live there, and all those scary people who live there, they're on drugs, and all those scary people on drugs could hurt me. They might band together in something known as a gang, and they might have violence and weapons and stuff, and they're going to be so whacked out on drugs that they'll just start attacking me. That's not the vibe you get from this, you know? This is not meant to scare you. This is meant to make you feel empathy. And be like, oh, that's tragic. It's so sad what's happening to them, you know? It's unfortunate, and it's probably out of their control due to the poverty and conditions.
Mines have closed.
It's been a slow, painful drip of job losses for decades.
It used to be with a high school degree, you could get a job that actually could provide for your family. Yeah. And the disappearance of those may lead people.
What's crazy though is when they portray poor rural white people like this, they don't help them. People, no, that's the thing. Like, I think that that's one of the grossest things about the condescension, and to be honest, liberals and the liberal mindset is like, yes, we can acknowledge that there's a national tragedy. We don't actually want to address the issues that are perpetuating poverty in this area. Like, in this one region, it would seem that, like, you know, poor white people in this area can't seem to stop still staying poor, and it just perpetuates itself over and over and over. And is there an explanation for any of this? And you're like, yeah, it has a lot to do with the economic systems itself. I mean, did we really want to get into this? It's like, no, I don't. I've done my part. I said the thing. I said the thing out loud. We all had a time, and now I can get back to my day, because I don't have to be bothered about this, to be frank.
To feel a lot more stressed.
So that low self-worth, along with that hopelessness feeling, we start seeing...
Aren't opioids synthetic heroin? No, opioids are just that category of drugs. So whether it's morphine, heroin, fentanyl, all of that, those are considered opioids. Fentanyl, you're probably thinking of, is a synthetic opioid. It doesn't come from a natural source like a poppy seed. It's actually refined from chemicals in a lab, and it's incredibly powerful and dangerous.
Tremendous depression. So how do you relieve depression? You can relieve it with drug use, alcohol use.
White people are poor and do drugs because something has been done to them. Black people are poor and do drugs because they won't just get up and do something.
And the culture. Don't forget the culture.
Everything that happens is viewed through that filter.
What started as peaceful protest devolving into something beyond that.
An explosion of violence today.
This is not what we want people to see of the city of Philadelphia.
Well, it makes perfect sense. How would you like people to see the city of Philadelphia?
The Eagles' victory touched off a wild celebration in Philadelphia.
The celebration quickly got rowdy. Fans pulled down traffic lights.
The awning in front of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel.
Oh, I'm so glad they did this. Thank you, man. I remember like a year ago when we were talking about this, and they were like, "Oh man, there's violence in the streets and chaos." I was like, "Yeah." Really reminds me of the time that the Vancouver Canucks didn't win the Stanley Cup in Vancouver, and I was watching that, and I was super sad. And then things got really violent in the street, and everyone just started destroying everything, you know, like flipping cop cars and burning them and stuff like. No reason either. I mean, like outside of the hockey loss, that's about it. But it's not like that's like sure. And then you watch it on the news, and it's just like, yeah, rowdy Vancouver riots have begun, and we're going to be doing a little bit of pepper spraying, and they've dispersed. And now we're going to talk about this shoplifter, the one shoplifter who broke into a store and stole some jeans because they're the bad person. Yeah.
Started fires and tipped over cars.
Yeah, silly.
Well, looks like everybody had a good time there last night.
Silly sports people being silly. But they're not trying to upend society. That's the difference.
And thus, the problem with white people.
Ah, that's where the segment came.
I'm just going to stop for a second and pose so you can get your memes out. Okay, there we go.
That's actually pretty
true. Get a good picture for your clickbait. For however sincerely we want to reckon and listen, the truth is America has always prioritized white comfort over black survival. Black people have had to fight so hard for equality that they've been irreparably set back in the pursuit of equity. And any real attempt to repair a ton of that damage, reparation, sets off white people's "they're coming for our shit" alarm, which we would know ourselves had we actually been listening.
My feeling is white people have a very, very serious problem, and they should start thinking about what they can do about it. Take me out of it.
Understood.
Interesting. I'll watch the other one too. That is pretty fascinating. So you said that Jon isn't radical, but he isn't Mara Rogan. I would place that segment, while not perfect, just mostly some of the jokes didn't fully land for me, but I would place that segment up there with, I would say, a better analysis of kind of race relations, critical race theory, whatever you want to talk about, the historic systemic oppression and racism in America, into kind of maybe the John Oliver / Hasan Minhaj tier of content, mainstream content, right? I guess this is on Apple TV, so I guess it could be a little bit more lax with how it decides to report on this. But like, it was certainly targeting liberals quite a bit as well. Shapiro wrecks Jon Stewart's unhinged anti-white friend. Kind of want to watch this.
They hate you. They really, really hate you. They love them. Right? Everything for them is about assuring their own sense of virtue and a place for them among the peoples. This is their goal. And never do you see this more than when it comes to people who are just panderers like Jon Stewart. So Jon Stewart has a new show on Apple TV. And this new show is basically just old man spouting left-wing propaganda talking points. And it's awkward. It's hard to watch, but it does demonstrate. You
know what's so wild about all this is it's like, it honestly, maybe we're just we're too far left in this section of the internet or something like that. It doesn't even feel like what's been tried to be explained in either the children's literature that they show and they make the big printouts of, or in the classroom pamphlets, or in the worker pamphlets that I've seen, is even anything that offensive. I think it's just the first time a lot of people have had to come to terms with a lot of this, to actually be like, okay, wait, what? Because like, remember when we were watching The Quartering, and The Quartering couldn't wrap his head around the concepts that there are different things that can oppress or make people's lives more difficult. And so he was like, well, there's dirt poor white people, so how does that work? Like, are they not oppressed as well? And you're like, yeah, they are. They're oppressed for their class. And it's like, well, what? And then how are you supposed to tell them that they have some kind of privilege? Like, what kind of privilege do they have? It's like, it doesn't mean that they've maybe ever felt an advantage or had a +1 in their lives from the aspect of being white, but it's also that they probably haven't had the same experiences that a black person has in relation to, they haven't usually been -1 for their race, if you want to use the video game analogy. As in, like, when they've walked into a job setting, they haven't immediately been slightly profiled. They may have not even been able to get the job interview if the name wasn't, like, you know, white sounding enough. The police may not have profiled them. The police may not have stopped them. Like, I can say this as someone who has an indigenous mom and has been stopped by the police before in Canada. I was able to talk my way out of it, and I was peeing on a building, which, like, it was actually the city center building. So in all reason, like, I should have been probably detained. I shouldn't have been able to talk myself out of that. But therein lies a privilege. That was a privilege I had the power to do. Whereas if someone looked very visibly indigenous, probably would not have that privilege. Probably either would have been arrested on the spot or beaten or worse, right? If they were like literally peeing on the city hall building, like that's something that you would assume the cops would treat you pretty unfairly for. Like, fair enough, I was young, so I mean maybe they didn't want to take things too far, but also, bam. So that's one of the things that it's just about learning these concepts. It's not like, hey, you must feel all the time that you have like all these advantages, white person, you know, and I want you to feel guilty. No, don't feel guilty, because it goes in the opposite direction. You shouldn't feel guilty for the way you were born. You shouldn't feel guilty. You should feel guilty about the systems if you're not going to be working to try and stop them, right? Or even acknowledge they exist. That's the other thing. To even be like, oh yeah, this is real. This is the thing that's happening. Like that's not a big ask. Just to be like, oh okay, I understand this. I couldn't wrap my head around it before. It seemed weird because again, it doesn't make sense to me. I've been like dirt poor my whole life. I'm dirt poor now. I have a hard time. I don't feel privileged as a white person or as like a heterosexual person. I have trouble finding a partner. I haven't been able to find a girlfriend. I have a lot of trouble in the dating market. I don't know how to do it. It's hard. It's tough. So I don't feel like I have any kind of like heterosexual privilege or something like that. And what are you saying? That like I just, is this about representation? What?
How members of the left think of you, particularly in our entertainment elite. This is how they think of you. And they wish to push the most left-wing views imaginable. So here is Jon Stewart. This is the other night. Doing first of all, the screen cap is everything. It is a white man sitting in front of a...
I don't get why it's so hard and offensive to people. Well, therein lies the part that we honestly, I would say as lefties, need to be better at communicating. Because like I've said before, there's clearly a divide, right? There's clearly a divide between trying to talk to someone, and a lot of working class people don't have any idea about some of these concepts. I'm not saying that as a matter of like, oh, they're dumb because of this. No, it's just, it's not something that is taught in schools. We've already learned that. It's not something that's introduced to the workplace. It's not something that's in the conversation. If you're in an area that happens to be predominantly white and, you know, has a very American-centered exceptionalism kind of view of history, and so that's what you were indoctrinated with, taught in schools, all this kind of stuff, then it's the first time you've ever had to explore these kind of ideas or concepts and even try to like put your head into a POV and frame yourself around them. So in the interim, as long as the other side, which would be the far right, is consistently lying about these ideas and telling you, hey, this is going to teach you that you're inherently bad for being white. This is going to teach you that you're evil for being white. This is going to teach you that babies, white babies, are evil. Yes, babies, innocent little babies, white fetuses are evil. They're all evil. Every single part of it. They are Satan on earth. And do you really want to believe that? Do you want your kids to believe that? And you're like, oh, no, goddamn, no, I've never had to explore these issues about myself before, and I certainly don't want my children learning these things. This is awful. Babies, I don't want to teach babies that white babies are evil. Why? I think white babies are angelic. Like, what is going on here? And it's like, that's what they're trying to do. That's what those, you know, postmodern neo-Marxists, all those lefties, those communists, you know, Joe Biden's a commie, and this is what he's trying to teach. He's trying to teach you that babies are evil. White babies. Only white babies are evil. And you're like, but white babies are beautiful. I can't believe this is happening. And then they win, unfortunately. Because one of those is a lot more passionate. Jokes aside, like, you're going to be way more invested if they're like, yeah, they're coming for your kids and they're going to teach them that they're inherently evil. And then you're like, holy shit, fuck. That's really scary. Okay, I'm on board.
Bill in front of a board that says the problem with white people. The problem with white people, and it's a bunch of people, white people looking like they are carving a turkey for dinner. It's like a traditional white family. When I say traditional, I mean it looks like mom and dad and some kids.
You know what's so funny is he called this out. He called this entire bit out, and you've already seen it, which is wild. Where he's like, yeah, okay, here, the framing's up. You're gonna be able to use this screenshot against me. Get your clicks, get your clickbait.
And some grandkids. The problem with white people, says this old white man. And yes, Jon Stewart now qualifies as an old white man. Here he is ranting about how white people are the worst, Jon Stewart.
See, so I'm assuming that is in relation to the fact that he's Jewish, and them both being Jewish, there is certainly a lot of history in how, Jewish people were considered lesser than, they were not considered white, especially at moments in history where they were literally being genocided. And so that is certainly a part of history. So when Jon Stewart is talking about this, he's talking about this, I would say, from a more academic standpoint, from just like a sociological standpoint, analyzing how society broadly works. And in that respect, myself, white, right? Like if it's how the cops are going to react to seeing you on the street. It's how a job, a boss is going to, like, no boss can sit down and be like, so I'd like to know your ethnic background now, and we'd like to know what exactly is your makeup. What percentage are you? Are you Ashkenazi Jew, or are you like? No, they're not going to do that. You'd be like, what the hell? This is illegal, right? At the end of the day.
For however sincerely we want to reckon and listen, the truth is, America has always prioritized.
And I'm sorry, I keep interrupting this, but like, it's also one of those things where, like, I feel a lot of people who, again, haven't really wrapped their heads around a lot of this. That's why they take a lot of insult to even something like this. Like, they're going to be like, oh, what is this? White racism, anti-white, sentiments from Jon Stewart. What is this about? And he's really going after more whiteness, like sociologically speaking, how society is structured, how these systems of power operate, how systemic oppression works, all that kind of stuff. That's what he's going after. He's not going after you people. It's not you people, like you white people. It's not like that. It's like you can even separate yourself from that process in just seeing how, broadly speaking, how are we indoctrinated by the media? How does, like, one of these TV specials differ from the other one? Why is it when there's a whole bunch of black people breaking into a Target and stealing from a Target, it is seen as this horrifying event where it's like the very fabric of society has fallen apart and everything is collapsing? And then when it is a bunch of people excited because their favorite sports team won, they're destroying cop cars and other shit, lighting stuff on fire, and it's just seen as a couple of boys being boys, those rowdy kids, a little bit drunk, and they're just happy to see it, like, why is it that we frame things this way, and why is it that we get indoctrinated with this idea and we don't even think about it? It's all subconscious. It's deeply programmed into us. You accept it as normal. That's one of the problems with the entire process.
White comfort over black survival. Black people have had to fight so hard for equality that they've been irreparably set back in the pursuit of equity.
Or attacking the Capitals just visiting? True. Yeah, that is entirely true. Like, I'll say in the case of, like, riots during the Black Lives Matter protests, that was framed even by liberals as being like, this is an abomination. How can this happen, even though it's happening in this very small centralized, like, part of the United States? And in the vast majority of the Black Lives Matter protests, they have been peaceful, like 93% of them. That's unreal numbers for, like, the amount of people that were protesting all across the US, and it's like, come on, process it that way.
So this 59-year-old white man is telling you that white people have always prized their own comfort.
Fuck, I didn't even bring that up. Fucking renting an apartment. Yeah, one less name. You're completely right. Yeah, like, I don't know if anyone who's watching this is, never tried to rent an apartment before, but the process is not that you just pick the place you want and then you get it and then you're like, oh, cool, I have a place to live now. You apply. and you apply, and then they check out your application. They will then look in and they will call your employers most likely, and they'll find out, do you have a stable job? Because I want to know that you're going to be able to pay me monthly rent. Like, that's how the whole process works. So there's also biases there, ingrained biases. Again, because people, they aren't even aware of this at times, but they'll think immediately, well, what is a whole bunch of stereotypes going to be based on me maybe renting this place out to an Indigenous person? Is this Indigenous person employed? Does he have a stable job? Well, I mean, I don't want to think this, but I definitely am worried. What if he's an alcoholic and won't be able to pay his rent? So I'm maybe not going to give it to him. I'm not going to rent him this place. But I won't say any of this out loud. These are shower thoughts that I'm going to think in my head, and I'm going to, say that perhaps one day I'll be so enlightened.
Now, apparently it doesn't apply to him, but here's the thing. It does apply to him. It does apply to him. Because Jon Stewart is about assuring his own comfort, his own ideological comfort. It makes him feel better to dissociate from the other bad white people. When he says this, he becomes one of the good white people. There's a point that black...
Being able to say, my dad is an engineer and I don't have any issue getting an apartment. Oh, well, yeah. That's like, cha-ching. It's like, oh, your parents are engineers? Cool. What firm? Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I can Google that. I see it. I see they have the same last name as you. All right, well, yeah, you got the place. Fun.
Author Shelby Steele has made repeatedly in his book, White Guilt, that so much of our current media culture, so much of our elite culture is driven by white liberals who wish to run the whole thing. And no more even white liberals, white radical leftists who wish to run the whole thing. And the way that they get to maintain their moral imprimatur is by condemning all the other bad white people, all the other bigot.
Okay, that one has to be slowed down. Oh, what a wordsmith. Delicious.
Media culture, so much of our elite culture is driven by white liberals who wish to run the whole thing. And no more even white liberals, white radical leftists who wish to run the whole thing. And the way that they get to maintain their moral imprimatur is by...
Oh, Uncle Ben. This is why you never get invited to family parties. Oh, feels good. Law says, shit, Lance, I had to fight for 3 years to get into my small apartment while I watched white people get moved in like 3 or 4 months after signing up for it. There you go. Case in point, everyone. An Indigenous person facing systemic racism in society.
Condemning all the other bad white people, all the other bigoted people. And Jon Stewart is indicative of...
But here's the thing, Ben. I don't even see color when it comes to this. I'm just like you. I'm colorblind. Yeah, it's just about calling out bad people in general. That's kind of the thing. We're not trying to break society into all these artificial categories of race and gender and sexuality and all these other forms. We're not the ones doing that. We're observers. We're trying to explain the way the whole system works. It's kind of like, we're trying to give you the cheat codes. That's what the left truly is. We're game genies. That's how we'd like to be. A new arc has been unlocked, everybody.
This case. And so there was this very strange and awkward exchange between John's
imprimatur. You know what I love about this, by the way? I guarantee you this is him when writing, or his writers writing a script. Every now and then Ben's got like a thesaurus requirement. He's like, no, hit the button. And it's like, okay, all right, nice, we got this one. So, imprimatur, Latin, let it be printed. The Roman Catholic Church, a permission required by contemporary canon law and granted by a bishop for the publication of any work on scripture or in general, any writing containing something of peculiar significance to religion, theology, or morality. Morality is the one we're applying in this case.
Stewart and Andrew Sullivan, who is a gay white man, and a crazy white race-baiting lady named Lisa Bond. Lisa Bond runs an organization that is just one of the great grifts I've ever heard of. I've talked about it on the program before. She runs it with Sarai Rao, and the entire thing is she gets together with guilty white upper crust liberals, and she lectures them about racism. That is it is called Race to Dinner. It costs $2,500, and you can list the services of Race to Dinner according to media, whose helpful grifters will come to your house, eat your food, and tell you how racist you are. It's an actual thing, and Lisa Bond runs it. So Jon Stewart has on Lisa Bond and Andrew Sullivan, and Andrew Sullivan points out that wokeness is a big negative. For the vast majority of Americans, they're not interested in being categorized by race. They want to be treated as individuals. And Lisa Bond goes off on Andrew Sullivan because, after all, he has no authority to speak. He is a white man. Now, just on the intersectional hierarchy, Let's point out here that Lisa Bond is a white woman. Andrew Sullivan is a gay white man. So I don't know, Lisa Bond.
Oh, shit. We have some intersectionality here. I think this is going to be a little, I don't know, 202 for Ben Shapiro. He's going to get slightly confused with this one. And now we introduce a third category, a trans black man. Now, who has the highest authority?
Bond's sexual orientation. But assuming that she's not gay, this means that he outranks her on the intersectional hierarchy because Andrew Sullivan is openly gay. That doesn't matter because Andrew Sullivan is about to say something that is not.
I love how they all think it's like it's a ladder or something. Like you got to climb the ladder of oppression. If you reach the summit at the top, you win the prize. Yes, the holy grail. You win wokeness. It's at the very top. Just climb on high. Yeah, figure it out too. I mean, this is why people are going to start inventing new genders and gender ideology so that they'll get just a couple extra steps. That's what they do. That's because everyone wants to win. You play to win in the game of life, after all.
In line with leftist thinking. You only get to be on the leftist intersectional hierarchy if you agree with everything that they say, which is how Jon Stewart gets to say the things he says. So Lisa Bond is about to rip into Andrew Sullivan, and Jon Stewart will agree because Jon Stewart has lost the thread because left-wing America has lost the thread.
I'm going to put everybody in the thing. All of us white people do this. I don't care if we say we're abolitionists. I don't care if we say we're progressive. I don't care if we're literally members of the KKK. Every single white person upholds these systems and structures of white supremacy, and we have got to talk about it.
If I could finger snap, I would finger snap right now.
Because finger snapping. And look at all these white people talk about how morally superior to you they are. We have to talk about it, says Lisa Bond. Okay, let's talk about how much money you are making off of stupid radical leftists who think that they've alleviated their white guilt by hiring a white broad to tell them about their own internalized racism.
Holy shit, he's big mad, eh? Big mad. I didn't know this would be the one that broke Ben Shapiro. Damn. Well, all things being said, I mean, it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it if it's gonna make Ben Shapiro this upset. It's like, I don't know. I didn't even think Jon Stewart. Well, I mean, we haven't watched that interview yet, so maybe that's the next part. We should finish the other interview.
You morons! I mean, it's just incredible. But this has bled up to every element of our society. Every element. The radical.
I don't agree at all with performative liberal, anti-racism, fucking Nancy Pelosi kneeling bullshit. Like, I think that is ridiculous. I think also a $2,500 a plate dinner where you're supposed to teach people about critical race theory or stuff like that, that's also ridiculous. Like, this stuff should just be taught. I mean, I know I'm a proponent for all information and education being free, but I don't see that as even like remotely controversial in terms of like, oh, this is going to be just a confounding moment, you know, especially for someone like Ben Shapiro in amongst all of this. He gets mad about trans issues. He does get very mad about trans issues. That's true. He does get angry. I've not seen him this angry at Jon Stewart before.
Everything that starts off as a radical left proposal in America eventually becomes mainstream. And so now you have, for example, the NFL, which has announced that they are going to create rules that force the hiring of women and people of color. Force it, which, by the way, is a violation of the Civil Rights Act. And we talked at the beginning of the show about the Biden administration suggesting it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act for you to say, I don't want my kindergartner indoctrinated with LGBTQ propaganda. You know what's actually a violation of the Civil Rights Act? Hiring people because of their race. That is a violation not only of the Civil Rights Act, it's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. But the NFL is doing it now. According to NPR, at an owners' meeting this week in Florida, the league announced other diversity steps as well. A 6-person committee of advisors from outside the NFL to review the league's hiring practices and a commitment by teams to increase diversity among team owners, a fraternity that's almost entirely white. The NFL says teams have to actually hire a, quote, a female or a member of an ethnic or racial minority as an offensive assistant coach in 2022. So it's now a make-work program for affirmative action candidates over in the NFL. Why? Because after all, we are also racist. We are also racist. And this myth must continue to be pervaded, that America is a deeply racist country, despite the fact that by polling data, we are perhaps the least racist country on planet Earth. It's amazing how critics of America have spent zero time actually investigating other countries. So solipsistic and self-centered. The only country on Earth apparently is America. Who's got 2 thumbs and wants you to like and subscribe?
Christ. Man, he's so insufferable. Oh, I genuinely feel bad for like conservatives who have to watch Ben Shapiro. I guess I have to watch Ben Shapiro. That's my curse too. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to conduct many a human sacrifices in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble yet incompetent jesters, trying in vain to bring some levity into your life. To our Lord Trevor R., we give you thanks for this meager plot of land for us to toil away our pathetic existence. To our brave knights, Carl Wauer, Tony, D.M. Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruben Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We salute our mighty heroes off to conquest some bread in some far-off land.